Catherine DeBach, and I was born and raised in Walnut Grove, California. It's near Sacramento. It's a very small town, 750 people. Very small town. I went to nursery school and grammar school in Walnut Grove, and 1 year of high school in Cortland, which is a neighboring small town. And then my parents sent me, thanks to my grandmother, to Santa Catalina, and that's where I met the sisters. And then went to Dominican to college. Here I told my parents that I thought I wanted to enter religious life, and they were really not happy. And then they said, well, we'll get you out of Catholic school. You have to go to any school except a Catholic school, and then we'll see if you still want to be a nun after that. So I went to San Jose State. And I went to San Jose State and graduated from there and then entered. And I entered with their blessing then, because I had done what they told me to do. I had a very fun time. It was a very wise thing to do. I'm very happy I did it. I grew up a lot. It was a really good experience for me.
Here you are, Dominican Sister. How did that happen? I mean, how did you...
God has a really good sense of humor. I think it would have been maybe 2005, maybe. I was visiting here. I was on the National Catholic Young Adult Ministry Board with Sister Christine Wilcox, and she had invited the board to come to Del Mar just to relax. I found a ticket for $149 round trip from Atlanta, because I was in my second year of working on my doctorate, and I thought that would be a really nice thing to do at the end of the semester, to take a break, and I was really happy to come. And so, of course, the ticket coming was you fly on Thursday, and so it's cheaper on Thursday. So she invited me for Monday, and I came 4 days early. And I found all this out after the fact, but there was a vocation retreat, and it was full, and there wasn't room for me really to come. But Christine went to Pat Farrell and said, I have this person coming, and what can I do? And Pat was like, there's no room. I don't know what you can do. Like, this isn't going to work. And so then, like, the week before, someone dropped out, and so I was able to come, and that was fine. And so I thought I would finish up writing a paper. Like, I had one more thing to finish up before the end of the semester. And so the retreat was Women in Wisdom. So I came to the first prayer thing thinking I'd introduce myself and say, here's this person that you're seeing, and I have this class on feminist pedagogy. And so I thought I would come to this prayer for Women in Wisdom, and it was so good, I decided I would just participate, because it seemed like a really nice retreat to pray with Catherine and then with the sisters. And so it just seemed like a really nice gift from God. So I had really nice conversations with the people there. And then on Saturday, one of the women there, Maria, who is a lawyer who didn't end up joining the community, she said to me, are you going to join this community? And my voice said yes. I was like, I looked around. Yeah, I looked around and got in the car, and then we went about our business, went to the grocery store, and came back, and I said, Christine, did you hear that answer? And she said, yeah, I've asked you that before. And I said, no, you asked, have I considered religious life? And my answer was, yes, I've considered religious life and discerned I'm not called. But apparently the question is, will you join this community?
And so in many ways, I attribute kind of the conception of my vocation to the Cathedral of Christ the Light, that community, both all of the church services there and the different communities that I joined and started doing ministry with, gave me that first sense of what is it like to be church. And the more I got into that, the more I started to feel the fruits of integrating my faith into the rest of my life. And so I was pretty ripe in the church in terms of setting up for the vocation question, the religious life vocation question, and I had mentioned it to the office manager at the time, and within a week, the Mission San Jose Sisters had sent her a notice about group discernment. And from there, it was almost like all these doors just started opening up right and left. It was almost like, and I've talked about this before, it felt like breadcrumbs. I was just following these breadcrumbs one by one that just would lead me, first it was like, how do you even infiltrate this? How does one begin to go from a completely secular life to religious life? Who do you call? There's not a 1-800 number, right? But there was just that thing that just said, if I don't do this, I will regret it. And it wasn't even a question for me. The big discernment question for me right before entrance was not, do I want to do this? Because there were just too many choices. It was a question of what would happen if I didn't do this. And that elicited a really visceral response for me that it's like, no, I cannot not check this out.
Mm-hmm.
And my vocation really occurred, my call, while I was growing up. And it came to me as I was discerning my future, because I had a strong concern for social justice and human rights and care for the poor. And I also had a strong spirituality, which at the time in the 1970s wasn't too common, the spirituality component among my peers. So I thought, where do people with these interests go? And that's when the first time it dawned on me that I was called possibly to religious life. And I was actually kind of shocked by the thought that I could be called, because I certainly hadn't been considering it, and in fact had been considering getting married and having a large family. So what I remember bargaining with God about it and saying, I think this is what I'm hearing you say, and I will consider it for a year, and if it's from you, then it should grow stronger, and if it's not from you, then that call should just diminish. And within the year, it really did increase quite a bit. So I fortunately followed God's lead in my life, and I entered in 1981, in January.
Here you are sitting here today, but how did all this start for you coming to be a Dominican sister here?
Okay, well, I grew up in Los Angeles, in a particular community called Eagle Rock. Mm-hmm. And as a second grader, my parents got me into the local Catholic school, which was St. Dominic's School. Mm-hmm. My first teacher was Sister Bartholomew, and she was young, she was beautiful. She's now Sister Claire Herlihy. It was at that time I wanted to be just like her. But that was the first Dominican sister that I really knew. Mm-hmm. So I was educated by the Dominicans all through elementary school. Every year but one I had a sister. Mm-hmm. In high school I went to a local Catholic high school, St. Andrews in Pasadena. And it was in those at high school years that I really thought about being a sister. One of the things that really connected me with the Dominican sisters was that during the summertime, I was invited to go with them down to their East Los Angeles mission and to have a Bible vacation school with the children. I had all of the kindergartners and first graders, and my classroom was the street, which was unpaved, and the sisters, one was Sister Claire Herlihy at the time, invited me. Sister Irene was another one. We'd go down there, so I did that for 2 or 3 summers. And it gave me a taste for ministry, and a taste for really what a natural teacher I was.
So this was a program every summer that the sisters had to
Yes.
prepare the
And they
students.
invited me to be with them in ministry. And that was very significant because I could see myself doing that for the rest of my life. I was also drawn to getting married and having a big family because I really enjoy children. I was the oldest in my family, and so had a lot of mothering qualities that had been utilized through the years. As I came to a decision point of thinking about religious life more specifically, I was also very close to the Holy Name Sisters that taught me in high school. And I would speak with them about the possibility of being a Holy Name Sister, as well as with the sisters at Eagle Rock. My contact was specifically Sister Eric and Sister Irene. And when I finally came down to it, I really felt more comfortable in the Dominican spirituality, but I didn't have words for it at that time. Eventually, I decided to join the Dominican Sisters, and the Holy Name Sister said, "Why are you becoming a Dominican? You'd be a great Holy Name Sister." And I said, "Oh, they say the divine office." It was the only thing that was differentiating from my perspective at that time.
I was born in San Francisco in 1940, and when I was about 2 years old, we moved to Marin County. So we moved to San Anselmo, and I grew up in San Anselmo. Went to public schools and Catholic schools, went to Marin Catholic in Greenbrae, and then I went to San Jose State. And while I was at San Jose State, one of the priests, Ben Cummins, taught me in high school, and he kept saying to me, "Why don't you enter the convent?" And I kept thinking that was too big of a decision. But when I was at San Jose State, I decided I should look into it because I knew that if someone said, I listened to my friends a lot, and I felt like Father Cummins knew me well. So I thought, if he thought I should try it, I should try it. So when I was at San Jose State, I went to Father Duryea, who is the chaplain there at the Newman Center, and he said, "Where are you going to enter?" And I said, "I guess Holy Names." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, they taught me in high school at Marin Catholic." And he said, "Why don't you look around?" So I did. I went to probably 6 or 7 different congregations. This is in 1959. So I went to St. Joseph of Orange, St. Joseph of Carondelet. I went to Presentation, Holy Names, and about 5 or 6 other groups. And my friends who had Dominican Sisters of San Rafael at St. Raphael School when they were in grammar school kept saying to me, "You should go to the Dominican Sisters of San Rafael. You would love them." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, first of all, they're very good educators. Secondly, they have great sense of humor. And each of them is very different. And in those days, 1959, we wore white habits. And so the sisters must have taught them well. My friends who went to school at San Rafael said they wear white as a symbol of joy. So I thought to myself, if I was going to wear something for the rest of my life, obviously it's changed, I would like to wear white as a symbol of joy. I should say the reason I entered also was that I wanted to serve God in some way. That if I really wanted to serve God, then I needed to be a sister.
Well, I was taught by the Dominicans from 1st through 8th grade at St. Agnes in Stockton, then went to St. Mary's High School in Stockton, and then went to Dominican. And as a child, I thought about it, but not really seriously. And in high school, Sister Rose asked me if I ever thought of becoming a Dominican sister, and I said, well, not any more than being a teacher or something else. And she said, well, go sit down and think about it. Well, it was like, whoa. So that was the first serious time. And then I decided to go to Dominican, and while at Dominican, I was in the Winifred Baker Chorale. I did not have a voice. I do not have a voice, but in a group, in a choir, I love to sing. So we were practicing for the St. Nicholas cantata. I can remember it well. And we were on the stage at Angelico practicing, and this idea, thought, inspiration, whatever we want to call it, came into my mind about taking seriously the thought of entering the convent. And while at Dominican, it was when I was having the best of times that this crept into my thinking. But that day at the choral rehearsal, it was pretty powerful. And so I went over to Meadowlands, where I was living, and put a dime in those days, into the phone and called Mother Justin and asked for an appointment. And so it went from there.
There and then.
There and then. And she walked me up to Santa Sabina, and I thought about it and talked with my friends and decided to enter the Dominicans because I saw such a variety of persons within the Dominicans. So while I looked at others, and Mary Knoll was one that I looked at, Dominicans seemed to fit.